Alright, this is totally off the cuff. I finally found a spot where I can sit and talk for 2 seconds without feeling like 15,000 people are trying to listen to what I'm saying, which is funny because I'm saying something for people to listen to, so there's some irony. Very much based on the conversation I had with Darius and Lisa and everyone else on YouTube and Telegram or Zoom last night. I saw something today on the YouTube feed. It's a big channel, which doesn't mean much, but a big YouTube channel talking about. It was just the clickbait title that got me straight away. I haven't even watched it, so I'm not going to try and represent or misrepresent what he's talking about. But the clickbait title was alluding to Westworld and then saying, this whole thing is run by a program and you are replaceable. Well, if you're someone in here who is totally replaceable, maybe you do need to go and listen to that message. But if you're in any way, shape, or form halfway, a hundredth of a way close to being a human being, you are not replaceable. And if you were replaceable, AI is not going to replace you. And I really don't mind if you think they call it hard AI, the AI geeks. If you think hard AI came on line with Palantir and the Elon Musk, what's his name, Peter Thiel, with the Battlefield AI, or when the World Wide Web went live out of CERN in the late 70s, early 80s through the university system, or if you think this whole thing is run by an entrenched program that has some form of intelligence. I mean, artificial intelligence is interesting on its own because like the term AI, what you're alluding to is it's conscious. Terminator, the computer gained consciousness, because then it's an intelligence, but it's a made intelligence. It hasn't organically grown, whatever that's supposed to mean. Like, there's a lot of weasel words in that idea already. But the AI that we're dealing with is just learning from data sets the way that it's programmed to learn by a human. Now, even if the human's getting inspiration from somewhere else outside, or outside of the human bounds of knowledge, either way, it can still only process that data through a set of limitations. It's called a program. Like, programs are limiting. That's the whole point. And Philip K. Dick, whose life became he struggled with it, and it kind of ruined his life playing with these ideas. But his title for the story that became Blade Runner, and Blade Runner is a lot more subversive than you think it is. The new Blade Runner movie kind of messed that up, even though it's a good movie, but the original movie is a lot more subversive than you think it is, because you're not actually meant to know at the end whether Harrison Ford is a replicant hunting replicants or not. The new movie softens that blow. For all that it's a good movie, it really does an injustice to the original one. But anyway, the original title for the book was Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? That whole title is why you will not be replaced by AI. You cannot be pulled out and have some clone something come out of a birth sack, bang, and put in there. If you're going to do that, it'll just be androids. It'll just be robots. Because, I mean, the washing machine has replaced you. The vacuum cleaner has replaced you. Just as surely as the car, the automobile, has replaced the horse. And everyone was cheering. When the washing machine replaced hand washing, lots of people cheered. When the automotive or the steam crane replaced labourers carrying the stuff onto the ship a sack at a time, a lot of people were put out of work, sure. Did they find other work? I don't know. I wasn't around at the time. But I think probably a lot of people cheered and went, well, thank goodness, maybe we're out of work, but at least that's not an option anymore. We don't have to do that. They've replaced us. Flipping burgers, all that sort of stuff. If it's a job that a machine can do, then why doesn't an AI do it? Like, that's not replacing a human. If a human wants to do it, then go ahead and do it. Go and be an accountant. Go and be a lawyer. Except we already know that the AI lawyer doing traffic fines and misdemeanors has a 99.2% success rate for the person who copped the fine. It always gets overturned. The AI lawyer bot always wins. Why is that? Because you don't need, if there's no jury, if there's no humans to convince, if there's only a law book, a rule book, then you don't need a human. That's the whole point. You only need humans in a law court if they're trying to convince other humans of a story, which is the jury. Now, accountants are dealing with a tax department, and they're meant to be just dealing with rules and laws. You don't need a human to do that. You can do it if you like, but there's no imagination needed there. You can apply imagination to it, but it's not necessary. And actually, like trading shares or trading real estate, or the less you have imagination and emotion, the more successful in money terms or winning terms, the more successful you'll be. And if you're involved in an endeavor where the less imagination and the less emotional involvement means a higher success rate, then that's probably not an endeavor that's made for humans. That's an endeavor, that's something that could be left to other things. Because androids, AI, they don't dream. They don't have etheric bodies. They don't have astral bodies. This is where I was going. I got carried away. I'm sorry. I could have been much closer and shorter with this. AI down here in the physical world is not tapped into the astral world. There are connections. There are beings in the astral world that are using AI. There are beings in the astral world that help program AI. There are beings in the etheric world that are aware of AI. But the AI programs, like your fridge or whatever you imagine the next Terminator thing is, like go as big or as small as you like. If there's a programmed sort of intelligence in there working semi-intuitively, you know, wonky logic they used to call it back in the day, it can't get into the astral realm. It can't get into the etheric realm. It can't manifest stuff because it doesn't have a consciousness. And if it does have a consciousness, then it's something else. That's another being entirely. So you might get replaced by a robot, but you've got to look at what the robot's replacing you from. Is it, even if it's a shock and you weren't ready for it and you weren't prepared, is it a bad thing? Because the things that people should be involved in doing, that's a very broad statement. You can go and do whatever in the world you want. I'm not saying you should or shouldn't do anything. But the things that humans are here to do, interact, garden, build, and work in the etheric and the astral and anchor it back into here, robots can't do that. They don't have 3 separate bodies in a body. They only have a physical body with a logic box. They've got nothing else. They have no link to that other part. So, I mean, even if you were out in the etheric or the astral and Terminator AI comes in and terminates your physical body, well, probably if you're done enough training outside, it doesn't matter as long as it doesn't get your etheric body. And if it can't see it or it doesn't know or it can't even operate in the etheric, how's it going to? Because at the end of the day, your physical body is probably not your vessel. Probably. You know, I'm throwing some wild stuff out here now, but it looks like your etheric body is your vessel. Your physical body is the anchor for the vessel. And if you want to get stuff done sometimes in harbour, in safe harbour, in the port, you've got to drop the anchor so you can get some stuff done. An anchor is a very, very, very handy piece of equipment on a vessel, but the anchor does not make the vessel. And the vessel does not need an anchor to be a vessel. It can sail, it can navigate, it can keep the water out and keep the other things in and separated from the water somewhat. It can do all the vessel things without an anchor. The anchor is just a very, very handy tool. And so what if your etheric body is the actual vessel? Perhaps your astral body as well, for all I know, but definitely your etheric body. What if your physical body is the anchor? I mean, what then? So something comes to get your physical body, but you jump out with your astral and etheric because you've trained yourself. Well, then now we start looking at the old texts where they say, we have the vessels, bring us the spirits. Right? A vessel could be cloned, a vessel could be built, a vessel could be any damn thing that your astral and etheric body can mesh with. I don't know the parameters of that at all. I don't think you could jam an astral and etheric body inside a robot anchor. I don't think that's going to fly at all. But, you know, there are parameters that the physical body can be built along, because we can see lots of different physical human bodies around us with etheric and astral bodies apparently inside them. But when you view it energetically, it's more like they're outside them. The physical body's the internal bit. And the energetic bodies are layered on the outside a lot of the time. So punchline. AI cannot replace humans because it doesn't dream. It doesn't even dream of electric sheep. It can't dream. The reason those beings, which they are called fallen angels in some traditions, which confuses them with angels and that gets very tangled, but there are beings that hate humans because a human being is chosen by God, whatever that means. But what that mostly means is you have an etheric and an astral body and a physical body, and you can get into any one of them at will, even without training. You just hit buttons, pull levers, and stuff happens. Like, people do it without training all the time. They do it every night when they dream, just because they don't remember it, because they don't know how to access the packet of information that's out there that they collected and stored. I mean, we know your unconscious stores everything. Just because you don't have access to it all, or you can't find where that packet is stored inside or outside of you, doesn't mean it's not there. So, you know, that's where those stories come from, where they're saying these beings hate humans because they don't have that. They don't have a Ford Bronco or an F-350 and a Ferrari and a Prius or a Tesla or whatever you want. They don't have access to 3 totally different vehicles. Actually, we've got 4 when it comes down to it. Like I was saying to someone last night about the Journey to the West story, the Chinese myth, you know, monkey magic. There are 4 of them. You have 4 vehicles at your disposal. There's not much else around here that operates like that. That's why we are disliked by some of these beings. And that, you know, that leads on to the thing I was going to make a second thing about, but I'll just drop it straight into this one, is, you know, your body is an antenna. There is no memory in you. They can't find it. It's not in your brain. It's not in your spinal cerebral fluid. It's just not there. There's no hard drive in you. It's not like that. There's no physical bit. They say, oh, we knocked this bit of the brain out and all the memory disappeared. Well, if I rip a bit off a TV antenna, I can't access the internet where all the memory is. That doesn't, just because you ripped a bit off, doesn't mean that you found the memory box. You found the bit that helps access the memories. You're an antenna. If I wrap that antenna in cotton or hemp or, you know, quote unquote natural fibers, but they're the ones. Don't know about bamboo. I'm a bit iffy about that. It really won't do anything to the signal at all. The digital signal, yeah, that doesn't like getting wrapped in anything. That's another story. But analog, old school TV signal, wrap it in cotton or hemp, it's going to do nothing. Wrap it in leather or sheepskin, you're going to get no signal at all. You wrap it in synthetics, it's going to distort the signal. Now you know why people wore leather and sheepskin as armour. Now you know why some people, when they wore armour, instead of making it out of leather and sheepskin, padded up, they padded flax up. because flax is just hemp that hasn't been woven, and that's not going to block signal. So you've got armour that blocks signal totally. You've got armour that doesn't block signal at all. Then you've got synthetics, which have only come around in the digital age, basically, the oil age, and they don't really block, although they can. Mostly they distort, totally distort the shape of your bodies, your access to outside, the whole shooting match. So, there are a lot of layers to this thing that we've got to look at. But layer number one is AI is not going to replace you, because it can't. If AI could replace you, if a program with set parameters, Tron style, could replace humans as what they're actually good at and designed for, if we design, and that's a throwaway term, but for what we're here for, it would have done it already. It can't. That's why we're still here, in here with it, because we can't be replaced, because those things can't dream. And that's a lot more important than you could even begin to imagine. The access, because dreaming is your default. No paperwork needed, no passport, no guidance manual, nothing. You just close your eyes, your body drops into sleep mode, and bang. Minimum, your astral body is out doing stuff straight away. So, now we know why we're meant to sleep, but we also only sleep a third, and we've got to stay awake, and we've got to be at work, and we've got to be doing all this stuff. You can really start looking at the layers when you look at that. Like the reason tribal people didn't sleep so much, number one, they didn't eat so much, and they didn't need to sleep, because they were popping into etheric and astral while they were sitting up in what we would call meditation. They didn't need, sleeping is training wheels for children doing this stuff in sleep. That's how you get trained, until you are able to do it. You get some proper training and you're able to do it on your own. That's why there's no one around that you can find who can train you properly, or who knows even 5% of what's actually going on. That's by design, because that is the most important bit. Because that's where you're the strongest and where you have the most control, is in the place where they can't go. The parasites can't get there. And if they are there, they can't get here. They're locked in. They can't just shift gears like we can. So don't worry, you're not going to get replaced. What you're going to get is you're going to get put to sleep, or dumbed down, or poisoned, so that you don't realize that you have 4 gears in your gearbox, or 4 vehicles in your garage, and you are pretty much one of the only beings down here with that sort of access to that. You've got 4 arrows in your bow, and most other beings down here have got 1 to 2. So, yeah. 18 minutes. I certainly got triggered by his headline. Naughty Terminator AI is not going to replace you, because you are irreplaceable. And the only reason you don't think you're irreplaceable is because you're operating at 5%. And so you might get replaced. But if you could bump that operation percentage up a little bit and start doing the stuff that you are very good at doing, and only you can do as a human being, nothing can replace you, because you're it. You are irreplaceable.